Alright, so hey everyone. Today I want to take a look at the dead zones for the dungeons of Hinterberg. This is being demonstrated on the Xbox Series X in case it differs on other platforms. But getting into it, so the movement threshold is about 31%. So we have a 31% radial dead zone. However, there's a dashed threshold underneath this, and what that represents is a threshold to turn in a direction, but not actually move. So I'm trying to stay within that range, and you can see the character is rotating, but not moving. This range is so slim, it probably won't ever be noticed during normal gameplay, but that triggers at about 28%. But we have, for the angles, we have full diagonal movement. So the character will begin changing directions, or will change directions right around each axis. And that should be pretty clear, but if we trace right around the dead zone, we can see that there are no gaps in angular movement. The curve for this is generally linear. You start at a decent speed, and then you increase linearly until the shaded region, and the sprint threshold is the same as this run threshold. It actually automatically moves you up into a sprint, whereas you can trigger a sprint faster just by pressing the sprint button. And if you're already sprinting and you press the sprint button, you return back to a normal jog. However, it keeps wanting to bring you back up to a sprint as long as you're within this shaded region. But once you move up to a sprint speed, it seems that there is a slight gradient of sprint speed within the shaded region before it caps off and you're at your max speed for the rest of the stick movement. For the camera, we have a 12.5% radial dead zone. That's actually reasonably small compared to most games, but we have full diagonal movement for the camera as well, and that bobbing is pretty clear, but it's even more clear when capping the view like this and looking around the horizontal axis. The curve appears to be a shallow exponential curve that moves into an acceleration jump, represented by the shaded regions. And you can see them pretty clearly when the acceleration is built up. So we'll let it build up and then pull off of it. It's a pretty stark difference. But once the acceleration has built up, there is a speed gradient here, but it does cap into an outer dead zone and flatlines for the final bit of stick movement. The curve itself appears to be set up radially, meaning the curve is calculated off the distance from the center or the dead zone, and that is good. The other method would be calculating it based off each individual axis, and that normally gives trouble with your diagonal movement and diagonal sensitivity, but this implementation is the ideal way where it doesn't have those. And you can see that my stick can move outside of this circular region, and so these values would be beyond 100% magnitude, but the game ignores this, so this just treats any movement outside of this circular range as 100% movement. And that is good because it makes it so that all your maximum full tilts are the same maximum acceleration. Your diagonals aren't functionally faster than your cardinal movements. However, this acceleration jump is set up individually per axis, and the shape actually represents that. This is a flat axial threshold. However, it's warped in this way around this center radial dead zone. So when you're entering this acceleration region right here, this is only accelerating the horizontal axis, and this actually makes it so this alters your diagonal movement. If we lower the sensitivity to its minimum to try to demonstrate this, the acceleration should have built up. But if we pull off of this, maybe that's not too clear. It might be a little more clear when looking at the right around this. You might see the direction lurching a little bit when I move right around this diagonal threshold. This is where they slightly overlap. And the reason for that is because as the horizontal accelerates the stick by itself, it's adding more horizontal speed, and that's actually flattening your view out. Whereas when you're in these vertical regions, it's increasing your vertical sensitivity, which is biasing your angle vertically. It's only in these slivers right at nearly perfectly 45 degrees where both axes are being accelerated at the same time. So your angle actually isn't affected by at that point, because both axes are being accelerated, so there's not a bias towards one or the other. For a game like this, normally this would be an issue because it is affecting your diagonal movement. However, in a game like this, it's not really that big of a deal. But they did set the curve up radially, so it is interesting that the acceleration jump is set up per axis. As far as the vertical and horizontal sensitivity, I'll raise this just a bit. I couldn't get an accurate test, but the vertical sensitivity seemed to be about 80%. However, within the range I tested, it could be from about 80% up to equal. So this is really not helpful. But I did attempt to test the vertical sensitivity and estimated around 80%, but it could be the same as the horizontal. The last dead zone is the map cursor. And this is about a 22, let's get off those, 22.5% radial dead zone. And this has full diagonal movement and is a little more easy to see when capping it to the screen edges like this. Around the horizontal axis. And the curve used for this is linear, so it just increases smoothly from its lowest speed up to its maximum full tilt. It does seem like, well, the general cursor sensitivity is quite low, so that's really the only criticism. Otherwise, this is perfectly functional. Now, I'm very early in this game, so it's possible there are other dead zones that I haven't seen and thus haven't tested. But overall, the controls for this game are perfectly fine. And while I've mentioned a few issues with the axial implementation for this game, since you really only need a very light amount of accuracy for at least up until where I've gotten in it, there's really no issue with this implementation at all. And this game does have lower than usual dead zones, so that may actually offset it for, you know, any of the minor movements you want to make. But otherwise, for movement, having full diagonal movement is really what's important, and that has it. So overall, this game controls pretty well, and that about covers things. So thanks for watching, and everyone, have a great rest of your day.